welcome back to the Lifting with Lauren podcast. I have my IG, I'm doing IG Live, and the phone is turned around the other way today, so I can use a better camera, because nobody ever asks questions anyway. So if you ask a question, just leave it in the comments. I'm going to come over and I will look at the questions in a little bit. So we're on episode 10. Yes, and maybe one of these days I will be consistent as to what time I am actually doing these lives. Obviously, people who are listening to the audio version of the podcast, it doesn't matter to you. But anyhow, so yeah, Friday morning today. And today I'm going to talk about why lifting does not make women bulky, and also make the argument that it really doesn't make most men bulky either. But before I get into that, I kind of want to talk about my own training. So, I have been a personal trainer since like 2013, and when I first started lifting lifting consistently back in 2012, I was doing workouts, I think from like bodybuilding.com, which is like where all good folks start. I think I talked about that a little bit in my last podcast, because I was big into bodybuilding stuff. So anyway, I started on bodybuilding.com, and then from there, I did write some of my own workouts. Like, I would see other people's workouts and I would adapt them slightly. And then for a while, especially once I figured out how to write my own workouts and all that kind of stuff, I'm going to kick my barbell off the thing here. Once I figured out how to write my own workouts, I started writing my own for a while, and then I would find new people who I admired, and I would do their sample programs. I would sometimes subscribe to people's programs and do those. Whenever I started trying to do powerlifting, very poorly, mind you, with bad form, which has led me to where I am today, I wrote my own workouts for that. So I've gone back and forth through the years, and I found that, like, if I wrote my own workouts, I kind of knew my limitations, but then I kind of didn't. So I would go balls to the wall and really overdo it on volume or on the types of exercises my body could handle. In 2015, I had some kind of an injury. I thought it was a hip injury at the time. I now think it was actually a back injury. That was to my sciatic nerve. That's why I lift like a punk now. So I have kind of gone back and forth through the years, writing my own workouts, doing somebody else's workouts. And 3 months ago, I was like, screw this! Because I was so mad because I couldn't consistently stick to a program. And like, psychologically, if you've ever been injured, it messes you up. I guess one day I do need to do a podcast on the psychology of injury, but it messes you up mentally because you're like, oh my God, I can't lift anymore. I can't do what I want to do. I know I'm strong. Like, physically, I can feel that I can lift a lot of weight, but then I do it and I feel fine at the time. And then later, like, my whole body feels like it's going to fall into a million pieces or break into dust particles or something or whatever. Or I'm in pain for 3 weeks. So I've been trying to stick with programs that are good for me, because at this point I've atrophied so much from not being able to lift heavy through the past 5 years that I'm a beginner. Kind of am. Like, mentally I'm not, and like, physically I know how to do the techniques, but as far as like the amount of volume I can handle or the load I can handle, the weight that I can handle on the bar, it's a lot lower than it used to be. And I am so prideful that I want to lift heavy. I want to do. It's not good. So 3 months ago, I said, screw this. And I went back on bodybuilding.com and I picked out a program. I did Jim Stepani's 12-week shortcut to size program, which, by the way, is like total, like, almost body part split stuff. Is a push day, pull day, shoulder day, leg day, which in most people's cases is not really enough to get you to gain a lot of mass, but it was a really high volume program. But I didn't do it high volume. I actually did like less than half of the volume. So I would do, if it was 4 sets, actually in every case, I was doing 2 sets, not doing 4 sets of anything. So it was just something for me to do, because I felt like if I did somebody else's program, I was held more accountable. So I did their program and scaled everything back, did lightweight, listened to my body, did that for 3 months. Well, that ended yesterday. So as of today, I finally decided, you know, it would be a great idea, since I'm already writing programs for all my in-person and online group training clients. They all do a templated program. Why don't I just do it too? So that's what I'm doing. So now I'm doing I'm actually going to be calling my online group coaching. I'm going to call it Lifting with Lauren, because I have a podcast called Lifting with Lauren. So basically I'm going to be now not really them lifting with me, but I'll be lifting with them. So I guess it should be Lauren lifting with her clients program, but whatever. So that's the program that I'm doing now. So anyway, so I have it split up into, if you're interested in the program, shameless plug here, this month, because we're still in quarantine, we're doing a 3-day split. Every time, all of my online coaching, or all my online coaching clients have access to like optional circuits if they need short workouts, but then my group coach clients are getting 3 workouts. They're usually full body every time, because I don't trust anybody to do a high enough volume on separate days. That's why I just did that body part split program. I would never have somebody do that, to be honest. Almost never, unless they needed to. Upper and lower is probably the max that I'll go. I usually don't separate out body part splits, because you have the repeated bout effect. Your body will actually hypertrophy faster if you do train a muscle more often, as long as you are optimizing recovery. In my case, I wasn't optimizing recovery, so I had to have a week break, or 5 or 6 day break, or whatever I was getting. So you would get full body workouts 3 different days. This month, all of the workouts are for home equipment. So if you don't have access to a gym, which almost no one does, then this would work for you. Anyhow, I'm going to shut up about that. Let me just double check. There's no comments here. Okay. All right. So I'm going to be talking about why lifting does not make you bulky. And I did mention this a little bit in my last podcast about how I got into lifting. I'm drinking caffeine. Don't tell anybody. I got 1 can of Bang, and it's lasted me 2 days so far. So I still woke up this morning with some jitters, but I'm addicted to caffeine. What can I say? I'm a drug addict. Okay, anyway. So, all right, a lot of women don't want to lift weights because they're afraid they're going to get bulky. And I was kind of in the same boat whenever I first started. I'm going to do a set of these, and now I just started talking, I have to shut up. I'll try to count all my fingers here. So when I first started before I started lifting, again, consistently, not that I was ever afraid of getting bulky, that really isn't something that ever really crossed my mind, but I saw that women could look really feminine and athletic lifting weights, and they really didn't look like they were super jacked. And it never really occurred to me, that some women look kind of jacked when they lift and some women don't, and I didn't really think about why that was. Obviously, when women go into a gym or think about getting fit or talk to a new trainer, that almost always comes up. It's like, oh my God, I don't want to get bulky. I'm not making fun of people, because I know people really do think that. It drives me crazy, though, because it's like, I'm just going to say it, it's kind of asinine, because it's not going to happen that way. So I'm going to explain why. Let's see here. In my case, let's just say in my case. Here, I'm going to take my jacket off real quick. All right, so I've been lifting since 2012. It is now 2020. That's 8 years. And if you're watching the live video of this, obviously I'm not bulky. I am a very skinny person. And that could be for a number of reasons. Part of it is because I don't lift very heavy right now. Part of it is because of genetics, because we have skinny people genetics. Part of it is because I don't eat enough. But the last part is the part that applies to everyone, which is you don't have the hormone profile for it, in addition to other factors. So let me kind of go through all those different things. So the first one is most women are already so afraid of getting bulky, or they're so afraid of exerting themselves that they're not going to train hard enough to even exhibit those changes. So think about think about me. I'm 5'2". I weigh about 108 pounds. Go me. I gained a pound on quarantine. I weigh about 108 pounds. For me to look like kind of jacked, I would probably have to be like 120 with a pretty low body fat percentage. That would take like a lot of work. To be honest with you, I don't even know if that's possible for my body. Not keeping it a low body fat percentage. I would probably have to go up quite a bit in body fat. And that's kind of the same case for a lot of other women, even women who are not naturally super skinny like I am. It would just take so much work, so much lifting, so much heavy lifting, in a lot of cases, so much volume for women as well, in order to be able to gain that much body mass. All right, go squat. Three, trying to do holds here. 4, 5. Can you imagine how many women, honestly, do you ever see that gets under a barbell? There's more women now, but how many women do you ever see lifting really heavy weight? I don't know if you know what the factors are that lead to hypertrophy. There's 3 thoughts. 2 of them are for sure. One of them is a maybe. It's metabolic stress is the maybe, which is just like higher volume, repetitive type stuff. The next one is mechanical stress. So how much actual load you're putting on the body through full ranges of motion. And the last one is muscle damage. So what kind of exercise you're doing to actually cause tears in the muscle fibers that would cause protein to have to come in and rebuild those muscles. So you have to have at least 1 or 2 of those in order to be able to exhibit hypertrophy. So are you lifting heavy enough to be able to do that? In my case, I haven't been lifting heavy enough the past 5 years to really even do that. I haven't been able to, just because of other factors. So I am more active than most women. Most women are not going to be doing that. Okay, so that's just kind of the first thing. So the next thing is, like I mentioned for me, genetics. Some people genetically are not going to be able to lift, are not going to be able to gain that much muscle mass. Their body, actually, a lot of people have a ceiling. So there are some thoughts in the scientific community that you actually have a ceiling as to how much muscle your body can store on it. The reason is because every bit of mass that your body is holding, whether it's fat mass, bone mass, muscle mass, it has a certain calorie requirement. So your basal metabolic rate is determined by the amount of muscle mass you have, the amount of fat mass you have, in addition to a bunch of other factors that I don't even know. That's what determines how many calories you need just to survive sitting in a vegetative state doing nothing. That's just to sustain the mass that you have because of things. I know that my head is probably getting cut off in the video right now, but I can't see it. So I think once you get to the point that you have so much mass on your body and your calorie needs are so high and your body is trying to keep up with this homeostasis in that higher, in that higher muscle mass region. So what's happening whenever you are going through daily living, with any type of, that was a water pump, sorry. Shut up, water pump. Oh, great, it's gonna just stay on. Obviously, I'm like in our shed. Your body is constantly going through catabolism and anabolism. Catabolism is where your muscles are breaking down. And that is partially because of its calorie needs. Excuse me. Your body needs those calories and protein in order to keep your muscle mass up, but you're going to naturally be going through catabolism at all times. But then the way that you balance that out is your anabolism. So the anabolism is your how many calories you're ingesting, how much protein you're taking in order to replenish the protein that is being broken down. That's just how your body works. And if you're able to balance that out, then you have homeostasis. I think there's a ceiling as to how much anabolism you can push. I don't have any research that I have read on that, so I can't give too much information there, but there is a ceiling there. With women, I think it's a little bit lower than most. Well, with women, it is lower than most men. I know that some people, they want to equate everything male and female, and in societal roles, I get that, but in physical roles, or what is typical for a woman, technically from a scientific perspective, a woman just physically, pound for pound, muscular pound for pound can be as strong as a man, but overall, general comparisons, you're not going to be as strong as a man because you just don't have as much muscle mass. So pound for pound, you can be just as strong as a man, but overall like man versus woman, you're not going to be as strong simply because you just don't have enough muscle mass. There's just no way around it. The only way around it is through steroids. So we'll talk about that. So the hormone profile of a woman is, did I do 2 sets of these or 3? I'm going to do a 3rd set. Still on squats. See, this makes me go a little bit slower, so it's not annoying. You guys are annoying, but you know, whatever. So the next is a hormone profile of a woman. So every person has testosterone and estrogen in their bodies. So men have more testosterone, but they do have some estrogen. Women have more estrogen, and there's different flavors of estrogen, if you will. Estradiol, progesterone, that kind of stuff. I'm not going to get into the specifics of that because I don't have them memorized. But testosterone is the reason that men are able to build muscle more readily than a woman. That's kind of the main factor, is that their testosterone is so high that it functions. You know, we think of steroids. Steroids are just like fatty-based, or they're hormones. So testosterone is a man's steroid. Granted, steroids come in all forms. I don't want to get off on a tangent here, but basically testosterone in a man is going to help with their muscle growth. So because a woman does not have okay, I'll get it out in a second. Because a woman doesn't have as high of a level of testosterone, they are not able to build muscle as well as a man. Okay, that's the first thing. So let's also just talk about men for a second here. I giggle a little bit whenever I used to work at the gym, and men, particularly old men, would say to me, I want to get strong, but I don't want to get bulky. Okay, so the same applies to men. If you want to actually bulk up on your muscle mass, you have to work really, really hard on that. I think it's a little audacious, to be honest, of any person, particularly a man, to be like, oh, I don't want to get bulky. Sir, you would have to lift until you were lying on your face on the gym floor in order to be able to get bulky. I'm looking at you, and this is not to be judgmental, but you don't have the testosterone profile to be able to do that. And by the way, some men have more testosterone, some have less. There's a huge range of what that looks like. But in most cases, even men, even with their extra testosterone, just are not going to be able to lift heavy enough, often enough, with enough volume, ideally enough, in order to be able to put on a ton of muscle mass. So now when it comes to women, I gotta do push-ups now. Push-ups! Okay, hold on. Let me do this. Okay, here we go. Hold on, push-ups. Push-ups don't count unless your chest touches the floor. My nose is hitting the floor because it's big, so I guess that counts. I just hit my forehead on the floor. Okay, 10's good. Let's see. So the way that women gain muscle mass is through human growth hormone. So that is the alternative for a woman within the scope of what is physiologically normal. So that human growth hormone is that your levels peak when you are in puberty. So my question is, can a chick in puberty get jacked if they lift enough? That's yet to be seen. I don't know. There's a theory in my head. Hold on, I'm going to check to make sure there's no comments here. Okay, so if a woman's main hormonal method of growth is human growth hormone, then we're screwed, because after you get out of puberty, your levels start to die off. And I can't remember how long they stay elevated after puberty. You do start to go down because your body doesn't want to grow anymore. You know what? I think it actually spikes a little bit during pregnancy. So for those of you who are like, you can't lift when you're pregnant, well, you actually can, as long as you're careful and as long as you don't outdo the intensity you did before you were pregnant. But I think the last thing that I had read was that during pregnancy your human growth hormone goes up as well, because you're growing a human in your body. So that's part of the reason why women can't lift or can't get a lot of muscle mass. Now, There are ways to naturally maximize your testosterone output and your human growth hormone output. So for a man, maximizing testosterone would be through a few different things. Number one, it's through a healthy diet. Number two, and then subsequent from that healthy diet, is actually a relatively healthy body mass, so lower fat mass will actually help with regulating your testosterone profile. Eating adequate saturated fat, so not like overeating saturated fat, but having enough, because that's how your body is generally making your testosterone stores, is from your saturated fat. So your red meat and your harder, coconut oil and any fats that are a solid at room temperature. Let's see, what's the other thing? And then lifting regularly actually does increase your testosterone. So all of those factors, probably plus some others that I'm not thinking of, those can all maximize your testosterone levels. Lifting in a program, I think maybe higher loads, heavier weights, will actually help with testosterone levels. In a woman, I'm not sure that it does the same thing. But in a woman, hold on, gotta do push-ups. Hitting my forehead on the ground. I don't have big enough boobs to get my chest to touch the ground. Okay, so for a woman, the way that you maximize your human growth hormone output is actually through, the last thing I saw was higher volume training. So what I mean by, I keep saying volume and load. So your load is, like it sounds, the way you're actually moving. Your volume is like sets times reps. So there's also a concept called volume load, but it's really, I don't like it. So volume is like, I do 3 sets of 10, so my volume is 30. That just sounded really weird when I said that out loud, but yeah, it's 30. And then there's an idea of like volume throughout a week, like how much. So basically you take those numbers, they are a little ambiguous, but you compare those like one program to another, and essentially you would want sometimes your volume of training to go up if your loads are remaining constant, or if your loads are going up, your volume would go down. It's a little bit too much to explain, but anyway, if your total volume, so sets and reps of exercises with a relatively high load, there's a little piggy in our yard going like this. He's flipping his head around and whatever. The neighbor has a pig that they treat like a dog, and he keeps coming in our yard. So he's like a little 1 foot long little piggy. He's over that way. So higher volumes, and a lot of women like higher volume. They'll train with high loads. Some women are good about high loads, but a lot of women, I mean, I've trained women for years, and I'll be training them, and they're just like, no rest, tons of repetitions. They want to do repetitions until their arms and legs fall off. They'll do like an entire set of an exercise that should be like wiping them out. They'll rest for like 20 or 30 seconds, and they just want to go again. And I'm like, dude, you paid for a whole hour. We're going to be done in 30 minutes. Now what do I do? No, I don't do that anymore, but I used to. Like, oh my God, what do I do for the rest of the 30 minutes? Do I let you go home? So they'll just go really, really fast and fly through all of this volume. And then you add even more and more and more volume, because you're trying to, as a trainer, whenever you're inexperienced, you're trying to wear them out. It's not really the best route to take. But a lot of women naturally want to fly through a ton of set and reps of exercises, and they don't want to do hardly any of rest. I think that's a natural thing for women, as naturally we recover more quickly. Actually, I did read some research on that recently, but women naturally are able to do high volumes of training, recover really fast, and then go again, and their body responds better to that. So, CrossFit. Not gonna get too much into CrossFit right now, but men and women in CrossFit are obviously jacked as F, right? Gotta do push-ups now. Eight, 9, 10. Okay. And they always get accused of being on steroids. Last I checked, especially those at a high level going to the CrossFit games, were drug checked. Now, I don't know exactly how they did their drug tests, because every organization does drug testing differently. Sometimes it's a random pick. Sometimes it's like a polygraph test, which proves nothing. Sometimes you're actually taking a T test. So I don't know exactly how they're doing it, but last I heard, everyone had to do a drug test, which means that you can't just take steroids. So the reason that the women are so jacked in CrossFit, the reason that the women almost look just as jacked as the men is because CrossFit is all high volume. So women thrive in CrossFit. We can go back and forth as to like whether or not people should actually be doing CrossFit or not if you're a normal person, but they're doing fairly like moderate to slightly heavy lifts. They're doing tons and tons of repetitions to failure, which is another factor in hypertrophy actually, is training to failure or almost to failure. And I would argue that their form is breaking down and it is dangerous, but that is the reason that CrossFit women are so freaking jacked, is because CrossFit is naturally set up so that women do insane volumes of training all the time, not just women, men too, but women's bodies are thriving in that. So their human growth hormone spikes through the roof. When you have high volumes of training, if I understand correctly, human growth hormone in a woman will actually skyrocket, and it makes it more likely for them to bulk the heck up because they're just training like crazy. So stop accusing CrossFit women of being on steroids. You may not like CrossFit. I don't necessarily prefer CrossFit, but these women are busting their freaking asses, okay? That's why they're freaking jacked. So the other thing is, let's see, are there any other? If you look at other sports, like sprint, power lifters, especially Olympic level power lifters, or Olympic lifters, which is like your quicker stuff, clean and jerk, snatch, all that kind of stuff. A lot of times they're bigger people too. Like they may be naturally, genetically bigger, but a lot of them also are a lot more muscular because they're lifting really heavy. So their body doesn't look quite as jacked, like not as cut as like a CrossFitter does, because they're just putting out so many more calories technically because of all of the stuff that they're doing. But a lot of your power lifters and Olympic lifters are also lifting really heavy loads. So their loads are going to be what's making them a lot bigger looking. And they usually don't look, like I said, they don't look as big as CrossFitters, and a lot of times they're not as big as CrossFitters because women's bodies don't, I keep burping, because women's bodies don't react the same. But that's why your more intense level athletes are going to be bigger. Even sprinters, they will do strength training workouts, usually not super heavy because they're looking for speed. So they're going to do all speed work, but they're going to have to be pretty jacked too because they're working within that more intense area of training. They're not doing endurance stuff. Like you think of a long distance runner, they're all like super skinny. It's because their body is using a totally different type of muscle fiber. They're using their slower energy systems. So they're not going to be having those like more muscular adaptations. You think about type 1 muscle fibers versus type 2. Type 1 muscle fibers are going to be your slower twitch endurance muscle fibers. Those are the ones that you're using only with like slow moving exercises, like me doing like this with my hands, like talk with my hands. That's all type 1. But if I was doing something really, really fast, I'm using type 1 and type 2. Type 2 are those explosive type fibers, but they're also the ones that allow you to do things that are very intense, lifting heavy, running really quick for short distances, that all kind of stuff. So that's why those types of power athletes, got a bug in my face. That's why those types of power athletes are also going to be pretty jacked. The last thing I want to say about it is, I know that people, I do not advocate anybody doing performance enhancing drugs. I do not. But the people who do it, are they cheating? It depends on the sport, because some sports don't check. If they're not going to hold you accountable, is it actually cheating? I don't know. Bodybuilders are jacked as crap because they're all on steroids. Duh. And everyone knows that, and it's just an accepted part of their sport. Is it safe? Nope. Would I advocate for it? Nope. Would I work with someone who was on a PED? Nope. But to call them in some form lazy, cheating, I think that depends. Lazy? No. I don't think people realize how steroids in particular work. So anabolic androgenic steroids, the way that they work is they essentially give you the capacity to do more work. If you ever watch videos of people who are on steroids working out in the gym, they look like they will rip a car in half because seriously, they just have the capacity to do more. Their body is recovering more quickly. Steroids cause what would be a normal recovery protocol for the body. It causes that to amplify, and it also allows you to, because of that, it allows you to make more muscle damage so you can work out longer or do things more intensely, create more damage, but your body will recover more quickly. If you were a normal human being working out the same way as someone who was on steroids and you tried to create that same amount of muscle damage, you would end up getting really, really sick, or just not recover because your body just couldn't do it, wouldn't be able to keep up with the damage. But if you're on steroids, you create a crap ton of muscle damage, your body is able to recover that really quickly. I don't really know, I don't know right offhand the effect that steroids have on myosatellite cells. I'm sure that they have some kind of effect on those. Myosatellite cells are cells that donate their nuclei to muscle cells so that you can have more muscle cells. That's the only way that you can start to have larger muscle. So that's just a side note about steroids, is that technically those people are working their flipping butts off and they're just using these performance enhancing drugs for their recovery. So yeah, if you're a lady and you want to be jacked, you either have to do CrossFit or you have to use steroids. Women who are super big, like who compete in Miss Olympia, they're on steroids. They're on some kind of performance enhancing drug, Anavar or Trenbolone or whatever that is the women typically use. I don't know of any women that uses HGH. Sometimes men will actually use HGH, or they'll use insulin growth factor, IGF-3 or something. They'll use insulin growth factor, which is a precursor of HGH. Men will try to use that in order to grow their muscles and stuff. You don't want to know why I know all that stuff. Those are going to be the factors that are going to lead you to getting more jacked. Other than just optimizing your diet, your exercise, and actually trying to get bulky. No one ever got bulky by not trying, unless they were some kind of genetic freak. If you were that genetic freak, please come and see me because I would love for you to be my client. But outside of that, you're not going to get bulky without trying really, really hard, okay? So rest assured, you can go lift, and it's really good for you anyway. Just check one more time for comments, yeah. Oops, go away. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks guys for listening. Once again, I'm sure that I know that I talk in circles sometimes. I'm trying to get better about not using so many filler words, such as so and then also repeating my thoughts over and over again. But anywho, thanks for watching. Bye.